velvet rope. Let's just get right into it today because we are joined by the one, the only Michael Musto.
It's so nice to be had.
What is going on? Listen, I'm wearing, I mean, this isn't planned out. I noticed this like an hour ago. I'm wearing an Andy Warhol inspired t-shirt. I mean, I have to show my respects, right? Not planned out.
Respects by wearing a bootleg shirt.
By wearing a bootleg shirt, which I think was from H&M or Uniqlo or one of those back in the day. So
Fine with me. Yeah, I mean, Andy would have loved it. That's my excuse for everything in the wake of Andy's passing is Andy would have loved it. There were actually people at his memorial at St. Patrick's, which I, of course, was in attendance. There were club kids in the back of the church handing out invitations to a party. And they were like, well, Andy would have liked it. And I was like, he probably would have.
You're like, that makes sense. So I guess that's just that you could use that for everything, right? What is going on? I mean, you are in New York. Like I'm a New Yorker, even though I'm not there today. There's not a day that I can remember, when I first got to New York in the 90s that, I didn't know of you, hear of you, tied to the Village Voice. Like I know you're originally from there. Did you ever think of living anywhere else, like growing up in your youth? Did you ever want to leave New York?
I couldn't because first of all, I'm allergic to the sun, and I'm also someone who doesn't drive. I've never learned how to drive. I don't have a license. If I rode my bike on the LA freeway, I would look like the 40-year-old virgin, but much older actually. And I like New York. Like I feel comfortable here. It's easy. It's a grid. Like if you have to go to 14th Street, you know that it's one block above 13th Street. I do get in trouble with the name streets, even though I've lived here my whole life. But look, I've traveled the whole world. It's not like I'm some hermit who can't leave. I just know that this is where I belong as a permanent resident.
Totally. I'm the same way. I have a license and I haven't driven in about 25 years. And people are like, just drive. I'm like, there's 0% chance I would ever step behind the wheel of a car ever again in my life. It would not end well. So
it's scary enough riding a bike, believe me. But I have 3 bikes now. One of them is an e-bike. And so I'm just gliding through the city. This city has died. New York has died more times than Glenn Close at the end of Fatal Attraction. But it always comes back. And it's always going to be New York. All the aging hipsters, are complaining it lost its edge. We got the edge back. Like there was crime and everything came back. And then they're like, oh no, it's too edgy now. It's like, just shut up. It's New York, whatever it is, for better or worse. And I will stay here.
Right. I mean, do you think that's the state of where we're in? Right. Like crime is back. And I mean, like, do you think now it's, people are like, there are a lot of people I know that have left New York. I agree with you. I think New York is New York. It's always going to come back. Like, where do you think the state of New York is now?
I mean, there are wussy people who didn't belong here in the first place. They left after 9/11. It's like, oh, so bad things only happen in New York. I wasn't going to leave my city because of that. Then with COVID lockdown, oh, it's horrible. It's disgusting. I'm leaving. Good riddance. Bye, Felicia. You did not belong here. Go back to Connecticut.
Exactly. Like the city's less crowded. I see nothing wrong with that. Well, back in the day, like I said, I first came to know of you, back in the Village Voice, like who didn't read the Village Voice? I mean, especially like a self-respecting, young at that time, gay man. I remember your column, La Dolce Musto. So like, to me, you really kind of gave a voice, in my opinion, to like so many people, like all of these club kids and people coming up like Peppermint. And, you really kind of made these people, at least in print, like, minor celebrities, as far as I'm concerned. And I think a lot of people would agree, or just brought notoriety towards them. I mean, to me, that's like the definition of today's influencer. I mean, can we attribute you as the original influencer, Michael?
Well, thank you, first of all. But yes, in a way, I was the original blogger because my column was like a blog. It really was a diary. It was La Dolce Musto. It was my life of that week in summary. And yeah, I was an influencer and I had influenza. But no, the Voice gave me freedom. They said, this is your space. And it became ultimately a full page plus a daily blog, La Daily Musto. So I was able to break personalities, break stories, celebrate the underdog. This is before Drag Race. Drag queens were working for very little money in sometimes risky situations. And I was celebrating them, trying to make celebrities out of them and treating them on the same level as a Hollywood movie star.
Absolutely. Like, what do you think of where we are today with, social media and influencers? And I mean, everyone's putting their life out there. Like, what are your thoughts on all this?
It's weird for me because now I used to compete with like a handful of columnists a very finite group of journalists that were covering what I covered. But now I'm competing with the entire world. Everyone on earth is a gossip columnist because you can put whatever you want on your Facebook. You can take a picture with your cell phone. You can post it on Instagram. However, that being said, I think it's great. I think everyone should have a voice, and it only makes the professionals like me who get paid work even harder to be special. And I think what people like about my stuff is my tone. Even with the whole world competing with me, no one's going to have my point of view because I'm that cracked. But that's also what makes me special.
You definitely have your own style and your own voice and your own tone. Like that, I would absolutely agree with. Do you think it's easier, today because of all of this? Like you said, like I could see it twofold. Like there's so much competition, like you just said, or is it like everyone has access now? Like, do you think it's easier to get into like what you do, or even like to be famous, putting it out there now? Is it a double-edged sword?
It's harder to get into what I do because there's so much media, because there didn't used to be websites. When I started, it was just, like I say, a finite number of print publications. Then it became sites, and every print publication had a site. There's so much media that the celebrities and their publicists now have total control. They can sort of pick and choose who gets to meet their celebrities. I used to meet celebrities every night in the clubs, and I was invited to interview everybody. Nowadays, if you're starting out and doing what I used to do, the best you will get is you can apply to be part of an online press conference for some movie you don't care about. And if you're approved, your question might get asked. And if it's answered, everyone on the press conference will get to use that information. There's no exclusive. It ain't pretty. It also doesn't pay what it used to. It's one of the few professions that paid better in the 80s than it does now.
That is true. I didn't think of it like that, but you're absolutely right.
But I'm still at it. I mean, the Village Voice is still there. It came back as a monthly and a website, and I've been in every issue since they came back. So I'm not doing La Dolce Musto per se. I'm doing more think pieces and researched articles, but I'm still with the Voice. It's like, it's in my DNA. I can't quit that place.
Wow. Do you think The Voice will go on forever?
I do. It already has. It's been part of my whole life. My column started in 1984. And actually, I'd written for them before that. I'd written some freelance pieces. So it's been about 40 years that I've been at the Village Voice, and it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. And it's
Wow.
always been my home base. It's like Michael Musto from the Village Voice. So if I get asked to be on TV or to write for another publication, that's my identity. I'm Michael Musto from the Voice. I was always the weird gay guy, openly gay, writing about gay things, back when really a lot of people weren't writing about gay things. You couldn't pick up the New York Times and read about gay celebrities or trends.
100%. Yes. I mean, did you ever what was it like back then, like in the 80s and even the 90s, being out? Like, did you ever think maybe I shouldn't be out? Like, did you ever grapple with that?
No, because first of all, I could never pretend to be straight. It would not go